All right, so you're gonna open up the self-service, and in the search bar, if you don't have it open, you can click search down in the corner. You're going to type in capture. And this should pull up manual capture. For me, it's this first one here. It's got these 4 little circles. One of them says ISO, one of them has an F, and the other 2 are split between 2 colors. Now, I already have it, so I don't need to hit reinstall. So I'm going to go to my art folder and hit capture, opening up this app. So I have here an arrangement of objects, and I'm going to hit exposure, setting it to 1/30. ISO is going to be 300. And my options at the bottom are between auto and manual, and I want to leave it at manual. Now I need to reset this back to 300. The last thing that I need to change is the focal range, and I'm going to set it to 50% just for these testers. And now I have my baseline set up. So I'm going to take a picture using the little camera button on the right hand side. And now I'm going to change just one thing at a time. So I'm going to start with the shutter speed. And I'm going to start by making it super bright. And I want to go until, not it's as bright as it can be, but as bright as I can still see kind of what's going on. So I'm going to leave it down at 1/10, I think. Yeah, 1/1/10. And I'm going to write down my number. I'm going to take a picture. And now I'm going to send it the other direction. So it's as dark as possible while still being able to see more or less what's going on. And I think this 1/1000th is a good number. I'm going to take a picture. Now I need to reset this to my baseline, which was 1/30 if you remember. And I might end up with a little kitty cat in my background on some of these. So now I'm going to change my ISO speed, my ISO on the right here, on the left, excuse me. And just like with the shutter speed, I'm going to go until it's super bright. You can start to see how pixely and noisy it is. Now it looks like 768 is the highest number it'll go to. Oh, we got a kitty butt. So I'm going to take my picture. Now I'm going to bring it the other direction. So it's as little sensitivity as possible, which is 24 on here anyways. And take my picture. And then I'm going to reset to my baseline of 300. And now if I pull across the bottom, it'll automatically switch to this focus. So I'm going to bring it to 0, take my picture, bring it all the way up to 100, take my picture. So now I have my 7 photos ready to go. I'm going to switch over at this point to Autodesk Sketchbook. And you can see here that I have an example that I made for a previous class. So I'm going to click on this first icon on the top menu to start a new sketch. You'll want to make sure that the orientation for the drawing is the same as it was for your pictures. So if you left your camera sitting so that it's a landscape orientation for your pictures, you'll want to leave your sketch at a landscape orientation. There's this little square with an arrow that you can use to change the orientation. If you need to flip it so that it's portrait orientation because you held your camera upright, that's perfectly fine. Just know that you want your sketch and your photos to match. Your presets should be all right where they're at, and you'll hit create. Now, I don't need to save this sketch, so I'm going to just discard it. If you're starting from scratch, it'll just come up with that new sketch menu before doing anything. So here's where we're going to put in the pictures and start putting them together into composites or combined images. So that first icon is how you'll start new drawings. There's an undo, a redo, there's a select tool, which is a dotted rectangle with an arrow. There's the transform tool, which has 4 arrows pointing out, a paint bucket, a ruler, a symmetry tool, a circle and square, a squiggly S, and then the important one that I'm trying to get you to, this little mountain range with a plus. And this is how you insert pictures. Now, I know that my 7 most recent photos are the 7 that I need to use for this, so I'm going to count back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this should be my baseline, my default, my control, however you want to call it. And I'm going to hit done. Please excuse the kitties fighting in the background. I'm going to insert my next picture, which will be the second one, and it should be super bright. This is my my long shutter speed. And then a third time, this time it'll be dark because it's my fast shutter speed. So now I have these 3 pictures, and on the right hand side is my layers menu. And I want to press and hold on my control so it's between my dark and my light, my fast shutter speed and my slow shutter speed. There's currently a blue square around that middle layer because that's my currently selected one. So I want to tap on my dark layer, my top layer. If you put your light one on top, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure that your control is in the middle and that you always have the layer that you want to be working on selected. So now, moving to the left side of the screen is where all your brushes and tools are. And I'm going to suggest using the flat top eraser, also known as the cashmere eraser. So you can tell which tool is selected, again, by the blue square around it. And I'm going to stick with this cashmere one. And now, right immediately next to this option bar are 2 little sliders. And the top slider changes the size of your brush. The bottom slider changes the strength or the flow. And I'm going to suggest leaving that bottom one at 100%. You want it to really erase what you're doing. The top one, you shouldn't have it too big because you don't want to erase the whole thing, but you also don't want it teeny tiny because you want to be able to go fast. This doesn't have to take a long time. So now, once you have it set to the size and strength that you want, I'm going to suggest going to the far right of that top menu bar, and there's a box that has 3 lines around it, which looks suspiciously like your menus, because that is what you click to hide your menus. So I'm just going to erase the left third and the middle third, leaving just the right third untouched. So now you can see my baseline, and you can see the right third of my fast shutter speed. Now I'm showing my menus again. I'm going to click on my control layer, or my middle layer. I'm going to hide my menus, and this time I'm just going to erase the left third, leaving the middle third untouched. So now I have my long shutter speed, my medium shutter speed, and my short shutter speed. At this point, you can either save the sketch by hitting share and hit save image, or if you want to just immediately move into your next one, you can hit new sketch, create, and save your current sketch. It'll save it to your pictures. So to run through this super quickly, since I use the same control for all 3 settings, I've got, here's my control, done, adding in my next setting. This is my high ISO and my low ISO. Dragging my baseline to the middle, clicking on my top layer, hiding my menus, erase left 2/3, select the middle layer, hide my menus, erase the left third, boom. Super easy peasy. And now my last one.
Hey Mark, it's David. I've got a Jeff from SP3 calling. He said he worked with you yesterday on an ECIP system. Are you available to take his call right now? Alright, let me...
So this one I'm actually going to go more top to bottom, I think, because the background is what's in focus here as compared to the foreground. So I'm going to erase the bottom 2/3 of this top layer. If you ever do something and it doesn't show up, make sure that you're on the right layer. That's usually what's happening. So I undid it. I'm clicking on my top layer. There we go. So now, as I've erased the bottom 2/3, you can see that the top third, the close stuff, isn't in focus, but the back stuff is. And so now I'm going to show my menu. I'm going to click my next layer down, and I'm just going to erase the bottom third. So you can see how nice and in focus it is by comparison. I think I did a little too much with that one. So I'll erase right there. Now you can see the range of focus from the foreground to the background with how these changed. Again, you can share, save image, it'll add it to your photos, and these are what you're going to insert into Notability and label. So I've already got one started. This one before had 100% aperture at the top, 50% along the middle, 0% along the bottom. That's all you got to keep in mind. Hope this helps, and